So I am a pretty agnostic or secular person when it comes to the nature of God. And recently I have actually gone down this route where I'm studying more exhaustively the Abrahamic religions and also the secondary texts that you'll find in things like hadiths or monastic orders and so on and so forth. And that raises the question, might wise somebody like me be reading these books given that I am not a believer in the propositions that the books are making? Now, beforehand, I know I need to address this because people are going to ask, what do I mean by I am a non-believer, or what is my worldview? I know people are going to be curious about this, so I want to address this first. I personally take a naturalistic approach to the world, and so I don't accept just axiomatically non-material things. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I wouldn't accept the existence of a God, because perhaps I could foresee some supremely intelligent being existing in a natural world, and that being so intelligent that it might as well be God, right? It might as well be the creator of everything. I could see that existing within the laws of physics, and I don't see any reason why I should exclude that. And so that's what when I get to the agnostic point, that's kind of where I'm agnostic. But when it comes to the dualistic claims of God, I don't accept those. So that's my worldview. Now, as to why somebody might read these religious books if they don't believe the contents of them, this is what I'm going to try to be persuading you of. So one of the first reasons is quite a common reason, and it's this idea that there is psychological content or psychological truths to religious books. Some people have said that religion is our first attempt at philosophy. Jung famously said that religion communicates the contents of the unconscious, and for Jung, the unconscious is like a living organism, and so this living organism has been passing on tales through various forms of religion throughout time. And I think Joseph Campbell kind of argues this as well. And so on the one hand, you could see that religion is a very interesting study into human psychology, right? The 7 deadly sins, these are things that should be avoided, and religion has been telling us to be avoiding them for a very long time. You don't have quite the exact same thing in other religions, but you have similar things like the avoidance of hedonism, the avoidance of materialism, praising false idols, things like this, right? You can find those in other religions besides Christianity or besides the Abrahamic religions. And if you compare that to, say, self-help industry, you'll see that there's a lot of overlap between the self-help industry and what religious texts are saying. And so it's well, there's a pattern here that's interesting. Let's look at it and let's compare it, right? That's an interesting thing to do. Another reason why I like to study these texts, not just of the Abrahamic religions, it just happens to be the ones I'm studying, is that you can find different meanings of life inside different collections or cultures of texts, which is why I'm also reading the monastic order books, Benedict's book or whatever. And the idea here is there's meanings being communicated, or what is a meaningful life is being communicated. And it's not just exclusive to religions, but it's just, again, coincidence that the Abrahamic religions are doing this right now. And I find it interesting that, for example, the abbots find meaning in life by subjugating themselves to making themselves a better person in the eyes of Christ. I think that's a really unique thing, a really interesting thing that you don't hear preached a lot in modern psychology. People will tell you that the meaning of life can be found from things like the famous Mimi book, Ikigai, whatever it is. You have to find your balance between work and passion, and that will give you your meaning, right? Or just explore your hobbies and make money from your hobbies, that's your meaning in life. Or however you feel helping people, that's your meaning in life, right? Your true north. That's not quite what you find in the Abrahamic religions, where they talk about subservience to God or subservience to a higher being as being the meaning of life, which is a very strong contrast, right? And I think that's also fascinating. So studying these books for the meaning of life is also quite interesting. Now, the third point is kind of related to, it's kind of 2 points, but they're very related, right? And it's an exploration of modern society through studying the influence that religions have had on shaping society, right? I think it was Eric Fromm in The Fear of Freedom or Fear from Freedom, where he talks about how Protestantism basically laid the foundation for capitalism, because in Protestantism, they talk about salvation through work, working really hard, and salvation through work basically just turned into working for profit, right? It conditioned people to work really hard, and then that segued into working really hard for a corporation. That kind of Protestant work ethic, as I believe it's called. That's an interesting kind of idea, right? That religion shaped the foundations for capitalism. That's a very unique take. You have the same, and again, it's different point, but similar. You have the same kind of trend with moral reasoning. You'll see there's moral dilemmas presented in various religious texts, and those moral dilemmas, how we approach them and what the books inform us and on how to approach them, can then shape our morals in the public. Particularly the idea of like the father being the leader of the family, or like the father being the moral arbiter of things, right? Like sacrificing your son for the name of God or what is good. That's something that definitely did happen in Western societies, and to Eastern societies it happened as well, where we had fathers leading families and being the governors of moral problems. Even like the idea of calling Jesus a socialist, things like this, those can be related back to how modern society is shaped. And I think that is also something else that is interesting to know. So those are kind of the reasons why I read these religious texts. And I read secular books about the religious texts alongside the actual religious texts. And again, like the hadiths and the monastic order books and so on and so forth. I think it's all interesting to read, and you can get kind of an understanding of all those points I previously mentioned by reading those. I don't think you need to only read those books like the Torah or the Quran or King James Bible or whatever. I don't think you need to read those books simply to be a believer. I think you can approach it from a more philosophical attitude or more secular attitude and gain some insights as a result of doing that. So those are the reasons why I chose to dive deeper into these books. And again, it's not limited to the Abrahamic religions. I'll get to the other ones eventually. But with that being said, let me know what you think. If there's any other angles I missed, because I would be interested to see how you study these books and how I can gain insights from the way you study those books. But with that being said, bye-bye.